It is very, very good to be here. I was thinking this morning, gosh, it's been a very, very long time since I've stood here to share a message. I've sat on a couch for many months to share a message on live stream, but I have not stood here to share a message. And thank you, band. That was great. And it's just so good. And, you know, the other week, Pastor Lyle preached a great message, and I was happy because I didn't cry for once in one of his messages. I had gotten to the point I was going to say I would no longer service lead when he was preaching because he always made me cry, and but I didn't cry, so I was very, very happy with myself. But one thing Lyle said, I'm sure I'll cry next time, one thing Lyle said was how when you come to preach a message, you always have to live it out first. Like, honestly, the week leading up to it, it's just like everything you're about to preach is highlighted in your life. And it made me think about, at the beginning of the year, I preached a message, and I was talking about Simon and about how he was a fisherman, and he'd gone out to catch fish, and he'd caught nothing that day. And then he encountered Jesus, and Jesus said to him, go back out and put your nets out on the other side. And then they caught so much that they could hardly pull it in. And I was thinking about that message, and the first point in that message was, don't miss the opportunities and to do things simply because he says so. And, you know, when I preached that message right at the beginning of the year, I didn't know that actually, although I'd had to kind of live it out before that, that I was going to have to live it out for like the next 5 months following it. Because honestly, this message that I preached at the beginning of the year, it's like it's followed me everywhere I've gone. And it has not made my life comfortable in the slightest. And there was even a moment where I was facing something only a month after I'd preached that, and our Mum's Time group, they reminded me of that message. And they said, Annika, but remember what you'd said. Don't miss the opportunities. Like, do the adventurous thing, which I hate. And to do the adventurous thing and to step out and do that thing, and just because he says so. And, you know, this morning, here we are, and we're kind of in this next phase, aren't we? It's like we're entering this new season, and we've come out of lockdown, and it's amazing, I think, how quickly we've fallen back into normal life. Does anyone else just suddenly you look around and you go, wow, it's like we're back to where we were? And I was considering the fact that there's this word I keep hearing over and over, and the word I keep hearing is reset. It's a time of resetting. It's a time to reset. And I was thinking, you know, in the natural, many people have reset things. For some of you, you've told me how your businesses, your bosses have come to you and said, you can now work from home so many days a week if you want to. There's been a reset in the way that you do your work. Others, families, I know during lockdown, many mums were saying to me, gosh, Annika, I realise now how busy we were with activities with the kids. I just don't want to go back to that. So some of you hit reset on your family life, on priorities, on what you wanted to do as you came out of lockdown. Maybe for some of you it was a really small thing. Maybe it was during lockdown you got to have family dinners. And so you thought, you know what, going forward, we want to hit reset on that. We want to change how we're doing family life. But you know what, I think as much as we're hitting reset on external things, I think this morning God wants us to look at hitting reset on some internal things. That there's some things that are going on maybe in our spiritual lives or in the way of our thinking that God is just saying this morning, I want you to hit reset on these things. So this morning, my first point for today there's 3 things we're going to look at to hit reset on today. And my first one this morning is to hit reset on our security. Hit reset on our security. And I want to ask ourselves the question this morning, what is our security in? Where does our security lie? Because I think if one thing was taught to us over the time of COVID, it was that things we thought that were very, very secure aren't actually that secure in our life. Maybe we thought jobs were really secure. Suddenly they weren't that secure. We've never really worried probably too much about the economy. But suddenly the economy wasn't as secure as it once was. Things we took for granted like flying in planes or going on a holiday, suddenly that wasn't able to happen anymore either. Even buying food, the security of being able to buy your food suddenly disappeared. And things that were so secure were now up for grabs. And I wonder if in some ways it was a bit of a shake-up for us, and it was a shake-up we needed for us to step back and go, wow, what actually am I trusting in? Where have I put my security in life? And in May, on Mother's Day, I talked a little bit about Ruth and Naomi. And as I was preparing this message, I was reminded of Ruth again, and I thought, wow, Ruth was a woman who at least 3 times had to do a check on where her security lay. You know, the first time was that she left her home, she left her family, she went and married this man. She married Naomi's son. And at that point, she left the security of all she had known behind. So she marries this man, and then this man, who is her husband, dies. And who knows, it's very easy to put your security in your spouse or in somebody who's close to you. Maybe it's in a parent. But when that person is taken away, suddenly you're left with, where is my security? And then a third time, Naomi says to Ruth, look, I'm actually going to go over here. I'm going in a different direction. I'm going over to my people back here. So a third time, Ruth is faced with this option. What am I going to do? Where is my security? Am I going to try to hold on to what I know right now? Or will I leave and will I go with Naomi? And, you know, the thing that strikes me with Ruth is the reason she wanted to be with Naomi was because she knew that's where God was. She said, I will go where you will go, and your God will be my God. And so she knew, you know what, security in my life, where I can trust, is actually where Naomi's going. You know, Joseph, he was another person who had everything stripped away from him in the way of security. He had his family. Well, they kind of stripped him away from them, really, didn't they? But, you know, he had his family left him. You know, over the years, he left titles, jobs, places he was living. All these things got taken away from him, and all that was left was his faith in God. And over in the Bible, we see people who have things just stripped away from them. And they're left in this place of, what am I actually going to trust in? Who is there for me? And, you know, through all these times, it's really important that we understand that ultimately God is the only one we can put our trust in and we can have our security in, because God is the one who's the same yesterday, today, and forever. He doesn't change. He doesn't move. He doesn't get shocked and, you know, moved off his throne because COVID happens. He carries on. He remains steady and steadfast. And, you know, for me, security is actually one of my top values in life, which I didn't know until quite a few years ago. Claire was doing a life coach course. She's training to be a life coach, and she probably needed a guinea pig, so I was like, I'll be a guinea pig. So she sat down with me, and she had 150 words on separate bits of card, and she said, I want you to look through all these words, and I want you to make a pile of the ones that stand out to you. And there were words like happiness and joy and laughter and family, and there were all these different words, right? So I narrowed it down to 50, and then I narrowed it down to 20 of my top 20, and then I narrowed it down to 5. Then I narrowed it down to my top 3, and would you believe, in my top 3 words out of all these words in the world, security was in one of my top 3. That is how important security is in my life. And just before lockdown, my security got a bit rocked in a funny way, because all of a sudden, Pete and I felt we were meant to move house. Now, you have to understand, we've lived in our house for 18 years. Annalia was 3 weeks old when we moved into our house. And in my mind, I was never going to move. I am this is it, that's good, I'm happy, I'm content, I will never move from this house. And we really felt strongly, within 2 days, we just felt like we're meant to put our house on the market. And it didn't take 2 days to put the house on the market, it took months, right? But anyway, but I felt like we're meant to do this. But everything in me was I don't want to do this. I really don't want to. Because you have to understand, my family is all about security. For instance, my parents, they still live in the house that they bought when I was a child. My grandparents, when my granddad passed away a few years ago at the age of 92, he had lived in that house for more than 60 years. Okay, my mum was little when they moved into that house. So in my family, you buy a place, you live in the place, you stay in the place, right? And I'm happy with that. That's how you feel secure in life. But suddenly it was no. Now you're going to uproot that and you're just going to move somewhere. And we didn't know where, we didn't know what to, we had no idea. The agent said, well, so what are you going to go to? I have no idea. I don't know. We just felt like we were meant to move. Dear God, help us, And so, but it made me think, it was this highlighted moment of, Annika, where is your security? Really, where is it? Is it in your house? And I hadn't really felt like it had been in my house, but it made me realize home's really important to me. And for each one of us, we can put our security in different things. We can put our security in a person or in a career, in a goal, in a dream. And those things can get shaken and they can leave us. And in Proverbs 3 verse 21, it says, "My child, don't lose sight of common sense and discernment. Hang on to them, for they will refresh your soul. They are like jewels on a necklace. They keep you safe on your way, and your feet will not stumble. You can go to bed without fear. You will lie down and sleep soundly." Some of you need to know this verse to know how to lie down and sleep soundly. I needed that for many months. "You need not be afraid of sudden disaster or the destruction that comes upon the wicked, for the Lord is your security. He will keep your foot from being caught in a trap." I love that. You need not be afraid, for the Lord is your security. When we have clear thinking and common sense or discernment, then we need not fear. We need not fear. God will watch over us and he'll be our security. Even when things get shaken, our security in him doesn't. We need to make sure that our security is not in the things that we have here, that we can see here on earth. Because who knows, all this stuff is going to pass away one day. We want to make sure we are building up things for eternity, that we are sowing into things that are going to matter long term. I love that verse in Matthew 6, verse 23. It says, "Therefore I tell you, do not worry about your life, what you will eat or drink, or about your body, what you will wear. Is not life more important than food, and the body more important than clothes? Look at the birds of the air. They do not sow or reap or store away in barns, and yet your heavenly Father feeds them. Are you not much more valuable than they? Who of you by worrying can add a single hour to his life?" And there's a powerful assurance and a confidence that comes when we know whose we are and who is looking after us. And it lifts this huge burden off our shoulders, and it means that we can truly do our part, the part we can do, and trust God to do his part, the part that only he can do in our lives. And we can trust him that when things are rocky in this world, when strange things happen and our world gets turned upside down, that God is still there. He is still a rock, and he is so faithful to us. So today I want to ask that question, where is your security lying today? What is your security in? Is it in your bank account? Is it in your qualification? Or is it in your job? Is our security in our government, that they're going to protect our borders? Where is our security right now? We need to make sure that it is in God and in the thing that cannot be moved. And when we have our security sorted out in the Lord, then we can step into what he's got for us. And I just want to say, security is a really important thing. It's very, very important that people feel safe and secure in a home, in a church, in a workplace, because that's a value which is very important. It is good to have these things, but we just need to make sure that our security is in God, not in stuff that can get rocked in our lives. So the first point this morning, reset our security. The second point this morning is we need to reset our yes. I love that we sang that song, Yes, I Will. I love that. It's amazing how things come together. Yes. Reset our yes. This year I still believe that we are going to continue to have many, many opportunities. There are still going to be adventures ahead of us and things we did not expect. And I felt like as I was sharing this morning, we haven't started our next series yet. So these sort of Sundays in between the terms, they're always like, what would you like to preach on, as opposed to preach on this particular topic. And I almost felt like this morning was bookending the first half of the year, and it was opening up another bookend for the second half of the year. But I felt like with looking to the second part of the year, there are still going to be new opportunities. There are going to be new things that God is going to bring up before us for us to say yes to. And during lockdown, there were not many yeses in our lives, were there? There were lots of no's. No, you cannot go and see your friends. No, you cannot go and visit your family. No, you cannot even go over to the North Shore to go and stay somewhere. No, you cannot go on holiday. No, you cannot even just walk straight into a supermarket. You must line up with social distancing. There were lots of no's going on in our mind. And I remember even as we first came back here into church, it was almost like, what are we allowed to do? Like, I don't know, are we, for ages, like, I go to meet people and you're like, are we doing this? Are we not doing this? I'm not sure if we're doing this or are we not doing this? No. Yes? No. Like, who knew? It's like all these boundaries that were normal before suddenly were like, no, I can't do that. So we need to retrain our brain back into yes. Yes, actually, I can. Yes, I can do these things. We need to take off the no mentality. And saying yes to God can make us do things that seem really scary to us. They can totally be saying, we can totally end up having to say yes to things which make us step out of our comfort zone. And in the book of Jonah, we read about this man where God has come to him and asked him to do something. God has said, I want you to go and talk to these people. Go to Nineveh. That's where I want you to go. And Jonah could have said yes. If he'd said yes, it would have been pretty straightforward. He would have just gone there, said his thing, we would have moved on. But no, instead he said no. And not only did he say no, he ran in the opposite direction. It's like if Nineveh was east and Tarshish was west, he was like, you know what, Nineveh's that way. I am running as far as I can that way. I am heading that way and I'm not looking back. And I don't think for many of us we get challenged with things to do and we think, you know what, I am literally going to run to the other end of this world to hide from God. It's not what we do. But do you know what? I wonder if in every day we have these moments, we have these nudges where we're meant to do things, and we run away within ourselves and we kind of go, nah. You get that nudge go and talk to that person. No, I'm okay. I'll just come over here and do this. Or how about you forgive? Why don't you forgive that person? It'd be really good if you forgive that person and you, no, I'll just block that out of my mind. All the time we can be saying no to things that actually is the very thing that will set us free for the future God has for us. God loves us to grow and he loves to bring along these new opportunities for us, but they can seem so very scary. Very, very scary, the run in the other direction type scary. But he knows what he's doing. And he knows what to put his finger on in our lives at just the right time in our lives as well. And even if we might not feel comfortable about it, it's what he loves to do. Because you know what? When we feel really weak and we feel like we can't do something, then it's not about us anymore and about our talents and our gifts and our abilities and who we are. It's about him. And it's about trusting him and stepping out and doing the things that are really hard for us to do by ourselves. And during lockdown for me, it was probably I was thinking about the other day, I feel like it's almost like if you could see inside my head, which nobody would want to do truly on any given day, Peter's like, what goes on inside your head? Do you ever stop thinking? No, I don't. What woman does? So anyway, there's a lot that goes on in my head, but if you could see inside my head, it's almost like all these fears that I have been worried about. I don't know if you worry about things, but I worry about things. All these things I've worried about for many, many years. It's almost like in the last few months, it's been let's condense them all down and let's deal with them. Let's just make you face them, overcome them, get over it. And so it hasn't been fun, to be fair. It hasn't been a fun time. But I'm going to be a better person for it. That's what I'm telling myself. So just before lockdown, the week before lockdown, it was suddenly all this talk about, we might have to go into this lockdown. And honestly, I think we were all is this for real? Is this actually for real? It's not really for real, surely. But anyway, we met with our staff, we met with our elders all together, and we prayed and we planned, and we were all right, so what are we going to do? If this happens, what are we going to do? We put some things in place, which was very good because within a day or two, suddenly we couldn't meet together that Sunday. So we did our first live stream from here in the building without anybody here. And so we did that, and then the very next day we hear from our Prime Minister, all right, the country's going into lockdown this week. And so then it was a crazy few days. It was literally loading up the church van, bringing all this gear home to our house to do live stream from our house. with the plants, of course, because we couldn't leave George and Georgina and Georgette and every other George plant that we own in this building. We couldn't leave them here to die for a month or two. Okay, so all the George plants came home to our house, and we didn't kill them, and that was like one of the biggest like bonuses that like we've succeeded of lockdown. I didn't kill the church plants. Anyway, so we load up, we get home, we start doing live streams at home, and it's all happening so fast. Like we're just in it and we're doing it. And then we reach Easter. Now, Easter was probably a lovely time for many people. Easter for me was not a lovely time. Easter Sunday was like one of the worst days of lockdown, and which many of you probably know why if you think about what happened on Easter Sunday, which you probably didn't even care about, but for me it was like a big deal. So Easter Sunday, we get to Easter Sunday. Pete and I aren't preaching that day. It had been recorded, so we were like, this is great. It's going to be a bit easier. But anyway, so we're doing the live stream. And I'm on prayer points. Now, many of you know what happened on the prayer points that Sunday morning. So we're talking about people responding in faith and not fear. And I'm struggling to read the screen, and so I'm leaning forward. I'm like, can't see anything, haven't got my glasses on, don't know what I'm meant to be praying. And so anyway, I shut my eyes, and I'm like, no, I'm just going to pray. In the midst of shutting my eyes and I'm just going to pray, I pray, God, will you inject fear into people today? Like, really? Not a good prayer. Like, that's not cool. So anyway, I have no idea. Like, I'm just off in this other world praying. And so I pray this, and we all just move on. I didn't know. The whole family, like, Peter went like this. And then the kids, like, looked at him like, did she just say that? Yes, she said that. Okay, so I had no idea, which was a good thing. So we carry on, we finish it. And afterwards, Pete goes, do you know what you prayed? And I was like, no. And he goes, oh, okay. You kind of prayed fear, inject fear into people. I was like, I did not. And he's like, you did. And I was like, no, I really didn't. Please tell me I didn't. Anyway, so I felt terrible. Seriously, I'm like messaging the elders and stuff. I'm so sorry for what I did this morning. I really didn't mean to. I like emailed Marlise, who's like overseeing the prayer points. Like, I'm so sorry. I like totally stuffed up. Really didn't mean that. Like, God, please don't put fear into your people. They've got enough fear right now. They don't need more fear. So I'm like freaking out. But anyway, that on itself was like, oops, that was a blunder. But what had happened only 3 days earlier was that Pete and I had done my first Facebook Live, and we talked about parenting on this Facebook Live, just how to get through lockdown with children, which was hard going for many. And so we did this Facebook Live, and it had gone really well. Until afterwards, again, Pete's never going to bring up anything again with me after what happened. But anyway, he goes to me, did you see that comment near the end? And I was like, no. And he goes, oh, okay, that's good. So what's the comment at the end? He's like, oh, don't worry. I'm like, no, seriously, you can't do that. What was the comment? So anyway, near the end of that Facebook Live, some dear person, God bless their heart, who we don't know them at all, decided to make a really derogatory comment about me, like really awful, bad, mean, horrible, not nice about how I look and my characteristics, right? So he goes, oh yeah, this person. And I'm like, wow, that's really awful. Like, that's really awful. Why do people do that? Like, wow, you know. Anyway, so that happened, and then Sunday happened. So Monday morning I wake up, and I actually wake up crying. Like, I'm actually already in tears as I wake up. And I woke up, and I was just like, I don't want to do this anymore. Like confession time, for the last few years, I'd watched churches do live stream, and I was like, well, they're brave. Like, thank God we don't do that. Who would want to do that? Like, who would want to say stupid things accidentally live, and then all these people get to say it? And not only do they get to, like, hear it, see it, and everything, then they get to comment on it, right? Because people are like keyboard warriors out there. And, you know, I'd look at Nathan. You know, he's a journalist, so he puts all these items out on the internet, and you know, people, they comment, and I was always like, how can you're really brave to do that, you know? And I just thought, I just never want to do that. And all of a sudden I woke up that Monday morning and I was like, we're doing that. Like, I've just suddenly, how did this happen? We're doing that now. I'm now in the position I can say dumb things, and not just my church hears about it, our church, this church gets to hear about it. Like, all these people are getting to hear my stupid mistakes now, and then people get to comment on it. And then it was like this double whammy, because then I began to think, our kids are helping us do this. our kids are now in the position that any dear person out there can comment on our kids. What parent would do that? Like, what parent would put their kids in the position that other people would comment on them? So I'm like not doing so good this week. So that week I managed to cry during our Zoom mums time because we went to pray and they said, anything I can pray for you for? And I just like lost it sobbing, like, like really ugly crying right on the screen. And I think I cried in staff around one of those weeks about it. Like, honestly, I was like, I just don't want to do this anymore. Like, I'm just so out, And but then in the midst of it, one of my lowest points of crying, I sound like a wreck. This is to help you all understand that sometimes things look fine from the outside, but inside we're paddling underneath the water, right? So one of these moments I was really down. I get this message from my dear friend Christy up north, who had been doing live streams since last year. And they were one of the churches I was like, man, go you. I'd like text her each week. How'd you go, Anything crazy happened this week, And I'd be like, thank God we're not doing it, But I was like, go you guys for doing it. You're awesome. I don't want to do it though. Anyway, she messaged and she said, hey, we loved what you guys did with the parenting thing. Will you and Peter do an Instagram live and a Facebook live about parenting with us this Thursday? I was like, no, I don't want to do that. I don't. I want to be Jonah and I want to run in the other direction. And just in that moment, I just felt this nudge of like, so Annika, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? Are you going to run away? Are you going to drop the ball? Are you going to be like, how you feel and your comfort is more important than maybe people's lives being touched or helped? Or feeling like they're not alone in what they're going through right now. What's more important? What are you going to do? And I just, in that moment, I thought I was living my life for the audience of one. But I wasn't. I really cared what people would say. And, that week when I was really struggling, the kids were so good, actually. They were so encouraging to me because I realised, our young people growing up in the world today, they are taught at school how to handle social media and how to handle trolls and bullying and stuff. I ain't been taught that. I was like, yeah, I'm happy to pastor. Didn't realise I was signing up for something else, right? God's like that, It's like you think you're doing one thing. Oh, look, we're doing something else. But, Jaden said to me, Mum, just don't read the comments. Don't read the good comments. Don't read the bad comments. And it just doesn't matter anymore. And I was like, yeah, I got to not worry about it. I got to not worry about everybody else. And I need to do it for the audience of one. Because he's the one that wants me to do this. And when I would think about all of you on a Sunday, and because, honestly, my heart was like throughout lockdown, I'd lie awake at night and I'd be praying for different ones of you because I was like really worried how'd you get through it. And I would think, you know what, it is far more important because I'd get feedback, good feedback, not the horrible feedback, good feedback saying, man, it means a lot to us that we get to see each other on the live stream and hear people's stories of what's going on for them. And we loved it when everyone was reading the psalm and all these things. I thought, you know what, that is far more important than my comfort and my reputation and me doing something really stupid in front of other people. So you know what, sometimes... Thank you. My whole thing is shut down because I've talked for so long. But, sometimes... we need to step out there and do the really scary thing. Do the thing that isn't very comfortable for us because there's a bigger picture involved here. There's more to it than what we like. And something that, because we've got to get people moderating, the live chat at the moment, and you guys are doing awesome who are doing it. But there's this really special button for the moderators and it's the block button. And you can block people who say really dumb things. Sometimes people say dumb things. None of you this morning will say dumb things. But sometimes people say dumb things. And you hit this button, it's called block. You just go block. It's quite freeing, I imagine. I've never done it myself. I imagine it would be freeing. Be good to do it in life sometimes, wouldn't it? Block. We can't. But you know what? Sometimes, as I was thinking about that, and I thought, you know what? Sometimes, though, we hit block on God. God's like, hey, I want to say this thing to you. And we're like, block. Because it's a bit hard, isn't it? It's a bit scary. It kind of like pushes the buttons of the things that we're a bit scared of doing, or it's a bit much responsibility, or don't think I can handle it, or life's already really busy, or whatever it is. You just block. God's like, will you unblock me? You know, will you actually let me come in here and say what I want to say to you? You know, when we say yes to God, that thing that seemed so huge and so scary that was being held over us, it no longer has any power in our lives anymore. You know what? You do that thing that you thought that was so scary, and suddenly it's just not that scary. It just really isn't. And I think when we put our eyes on the right thing, it helps us do these things. Jonah, originally he said, no, it's too hard, I don't want to do it. And he ran away from God, but he found that when he ran away from God, he ran into God. You know, we can run for years from the things that we should be doing, but eventually we will run back into those things again, and we will run into God, and we will face those things again. And there will be the question of, are you going to do it? And I want to encourage us today that we say yes. I will do that thing even if it seems really scary. So let's reset our yes. And the final thing this morning is number 3, that we reset our focus. We reset our focus. Isaiah 61 verse 1 says, the Spirit of the Sovereign Lord is on me, because the Lord has anointed me to proclaim the good news to the poor. He sent me to bind up the brokenhearted and to proclaim freedom for the captives and release from darkness for the prisoners. And sometimes we need a reminder to keep the main thing the main thing. And I think at the moment maybe as we're going back into normal life, but a bit different normal life, we need to remember what the main thing is. And for me, this verse, you know, there used to be a song that we sang many years ago, and it had these words in it, and it would break me open every time. I thought, you know, God, that's what I want to do with my life. I want you to use me, Lord, to help bind up the brokenhearted and to see people set free, to see lives radically changed. And I think we need to make sure that we're still focusing on the main things. God calls us as individuals to do incredible things. And there'll be things that you will do that I will never be able to do, and there'll be things that I'll do that you won't do. But also God calls us corporately as a church and as a body. And I was thinking, you know, there were things that worked really well in lockdown, but they won't work so well now that we're out of lockdown. And, you know, there was a time for many where you got to sit with your comfy slippers on your comfy couch with your comfy blanket to watch church comfy on a Sunday. And I know many still are, and that's why we want to do these live streams, so that many of you still know that you are so loved and so important and so a part of things, even though you can't be in the room. But for 95% of us, we can be in the room on a Sunday morning. And I was thinking, you know what? Some mornings, many mornings, most mornings, let's be honest, I hate mornings, right? So mornings, for me, I'd rather be at home, being comfy, on my comfy couch, with my comfy slippers and my comfy blanket. Comfiness is very important to me in my life. So I'd like to be comfy. But as I was thinking about that, I just thought, is it beneficial for my life to stay at home and be comfy? I thought, no. I thought, is it beneficial for my family if every Sunday morning they saw mum at home being comfy? No. Would it be beneficial for our church? Some of you may think yes. No. On the whole, no, it wouldn't if I stayed at home every Sunday morning being comfy. It's really important that I take my place. And it's really important that each one of us takes our place. In Romans 1, verse 1, it says, therefore I urge you, brothers and sisters, in view of God's mercy, to offer your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and pleasing to God. This is your true and proper worship. Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is, his good, pleasing, and perfect will. You know, the Message version says, don't become so well adjusted to your culture that you fit into it without even thinking. Instead, fix your attention on God. You'll be changed from the inside out. Readily recognize what he wants from you and quickly respond to it. You know what? It's so easy for us to fit into the culture of the day. And you know, although at first it was hard, it became easy to fit into the culture of COVID. I've decided there was like a COVID culture. But you know what? COVID culture is over in many, many ways in New Zealand. I know it's not totally, it's not completely. But for most of it, it's pretty much settled, especially compared to other countries. So the COVID culture, it's time to kind of turn off to. And we want to go back to the culture of building God's kingdom here on earth, of saying, Lord, your will be done here on earth as it is in heaven. And it is very, actually, if I can have the band up now, that would be really great. But I've been thinking how crazy 2020 was, and none of us would have predicted at the beginning of the year what would happen. And as I was thinking about that, I thought, it didn't take God by surprise at all. And in fact, he was like, good, I can actually kickstart some things I've been wanting this church to do for a very, very long time. But Annika wouldn't let it happen. No, that's not true. I wasn't asked. No. I would have said, yes, okay, let's do that. But I think God was happy to kickstart some things, to be fair, in our lives. But as a result of lockdown, I think we would be foolish to think that we're not tired as a result of it. Many, many of us are very, very tired. I have been very, very tired. And I just felt like as I was preparing this last point about it's time to reset our focus, I wanted to encourage some of you. For some of you, you had actually like a little holiday during lockdown. And I was so pleased that some of you got to do that. That it was like you got paid to be at home, and that's so cool. Some of you have come back like rearing to go, and that's really great. But for others of you, you are not coming back rearing to go. You've come back and you're like, help me, Jesus. I'm hanging on by a thread, which honestly was where we were 2 weeks ago. Help us, Jesus. One last thing would push us over the edge. For some of you, I felt like to be able to reset your focus, you need a break. You actually need a holiday. You actually need some refreshing time. You need some time out of Auckland. You need to go away for a week. Maybe for an afternoon, you need to go down to a beach. You need to just sit there and stare at the water. You just need to look after yourselves a little bit. And not just a couple of you, I'm talking about like a lot of you, because we can underestimate the effects of what we've all been through. Okay, and we can try to keep going. And I've been so blessed as I've been looking on Facebook and seeing so many of our church people away on holiday. I'm like, that is so good. But some of you are thinking you're all good, but actually, if you can try to take a break, I think it'll be really good. But for others as well, I was reminded of Elijah, and he had that moment, and he went and sat under a tree. Great things had happened, but then he sat under a tree, and he was tired. And the angel came to him, and he said, get up and eat. And Elijah went back to sleep, because he was over it. And this angel came to him a second time and said, it's time to get up and eat. And so Elijah got up, and he ate, and he went on his journey. And he could do the journey ahead because he did that. And for some of us, to reset our focus, we need a break. For others, we need to get up because it's time to get up out of the comfort. And it's time to keep going. It's time to refocus. It's time to say, okay, Lord, I'm going to eat. You're going to fill me up, and then I'm going to keep going. So let's stand up this morning. And we're just going to sing this song again, Yes, I Will. And I just want us as we do that to think about these three things. Maybe this morning you're very aware that your security is not in God. Your security's been in all these other things, and it wrecked you during lockdown because suddenly you're freaked out about what was going to happen to this world. Maybe this morning you need to come and lay that before the Lord and say, Lord, I want you to be my security. Secondly, maybe you're aware it's time for you to say yes. Yes to some things that have been God's been putting his finger on for a while now. Or thirdly, maybe you're very aware it's time to reset your focus. What has God got for you in this next season? What has he got for you coming up ahead? So let's, as we worship this morning, and then Peter and Nathan will come and share the prayer points, but let's just really lift him up above everything else this morning. Of all the hard stuff, all the scary stuff, lift his name above everything. Let's do that now.